we have a couple other board members that will be joining us, but we also have some conflicts with some things up at the Capitol too. So as soon as as people come on, we'll make sure they introduce themselves, but I'll let my vice chair introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Joanne Brinton, Vice Chair of Standards and Assessments. Happy to be here, work with you all.
Thank you. And we actually have a new policy advisor. We're going to let her take just a minute and share her name and maybe just a little bit about herself.
So my name is Jennifer Wadsworth, literally my third day and my first committee meeting. So really excited about that. I'm a former teacher. I have a background in history education, and I've been working for the Utah State PTA as their policy advisor for the past 3 years. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. We should see a lot more of her in a variety of committees. So we're grateful that she's here, and thank you for introducing yourself. Okay, we're going to start today. We don't have any public comment. Is that correct? So no one is scheduled for public comment, but we always start with a recognition and progress, achievements, improvements, that kind of award. And today it is our school safety needs assessment, our school safety team, right? It's a school safety needs assessment, but it's our safety team. So come on up to the front. And these are people that I personally have worked with and appreciate all their hard work. Yeah, just take a chair anywhere there. So we're grateful they're here, and we are going to go ahead and who's going to do the recognition? Okay. All right. So Superintendent, Deputy, it's
just put a lot of words in there and you'll get it.
I mean, it's not, yeah, go
Interim.
ahead. Interim, that's the word. I was like temporary, but that's not the right word. Interim.
It's kind of
Deputy
the right word.
Superintendent Leah Voorhees. So go ahead and introduce us to our recognition people today.
Thank you, Chair. Interim Deputy Superintendent of Achievement, Leah Voorhees. I'm really excited to be here with y'all this morning and to share this recognition with the Standards and Assessment Committee. So this is the school safety team, and Chantel has a school safety T-shirt on this morning. Our Director of School Safety and Student Services. That's super exciting. So just to give you a little heads up about this recognition, which really is a huge major undertaking that we're really excited and proud of. In 2024, House Bill 84 was passed requiring that an LEA ensure a school safety needs assessment is conducted for each school within the LEA to determine the needs and deficiencies regarding appropriate school safety personnel, including necessary supports, training, and policy creation for the personnel. Physical building security and safety, including required upgrades to facilities and safety technology, a school's current threat and emergency response protocols, including any emergency safety agreements with local law enforcement. The LEA was required to report the results of the school safety needs assessment for each school within the LEA to the state security chief and the school safety center here at the State Board of Education by December 30th of last calendar year. And that, just for context, there are about 1,100 schools in the state of Utah. So this is a lot of school buildings. To achieve this goal, the School Safety Center spent many hours working with the state security chief to create a tool used to track the school safety needs assessment data for each LEA. Technical support was provided to LEAs via webinars, written instructions, individual support, many emails. As the deadline neared, some members of the School Safety Center worked with local leaders to contact schools who had not completed the report. And here in the administration of the USB, we received weekly updates of how many schools hadn't completed, how many had, which LEAs had completed and not. So it was a huge undertaking. Due to these combined efforts, we're proud to report that the School Safety Center received 100% submission rate of the school safety needs assessment. So almost 1,100 of them. 100% completion rate demonstrates the state's shared understanding of the importance of school safety. Furthermore, it underscores the Utah State Board of Education's strategic plan goal that each student learns in a safe and healthy school environment. And LEAs should be, and hopefully are, very proud of this accomplishment. We sure are. The data from the school safety needs assessment you saw yesterday when you were looking at funding requests, and it will not only help us and the School Safety Task Force and the Department of Public Safety, but LEAs to understand gaps in school safety measures and to apply for grant funding to purchase safety-related items. Additionally, the School Safety Task Force grant subcommittee is reviewing the data, like you heard yesterday, to determine how to spend money from last year and what may be still needed. So we're really excited to recognize the participating staff. So the Director of School Safety and Student Services, Chantel Coda, Rhett Larson, who is the School Safety Center Coordinator, Willie Chen, is she online? Okay, yep, I see her there. Willie Chen, wave. The School Safety Data Analyst, Melissa Mielstein, the Executive Secretary, there she is, waving. For the School Safety Center, Ashley Pistello. She's online, okay. Oh, she's on a plane. She is not. Okay. She's one of our School Safety Center specialists. Michelle Knight, who is the Threat and Crisis Response Support Specialist. And Scott Iyer, the Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health Liaison. Yep, see him, wave, okay. Jeremy Barnes, who's our liaison from the Department of Public Safety. I don't see him online, is he? He's traveling too. Okay, and then we have a new member of the School Safety Center team, Levi Grisenti. So he's here with us as well. So welcome to the team. And Chris Ann Lewis, who is our new-ish coordinator of student services. So happy to introduce all these individuals to you and to celebrate the good work of this team. But really, I mean, the work was at the LEA and the school level, and the schools had to do this in partnership with their county school safety chiefs and with law enforcement. This was a huge lift. So it's really impressive that we got to that 100%. So thank you for the opportunity to share, Chair.
Thank you. Do either or any of you have anything you want to share with us? Yeah, Chantel?
Yes, thank you, Chair Earl. I appreciate that. So Chantel Coda, Director of School Safety and Student Services. Just want to thank everyone here for your support as well, board members and leadership. We couldn't have done this lift without you. And I agree with Leah's sentiment that really the schools, I mean, this is a huge, not only undertaking, but it's a huge mindset shift. So we're looking at school safety in kind of a revolutionary way. I kind of think of this as like the industrial revolution of school safety, because everything's just different and new. If you remember sitting in rows in schools, and then we said, oh no, we're going to sit in groups and teams, and everyone's like, what in the world is this? It's kind of like that right now with school safety. It's, you know, kind of what in the world is this and what does this mean and how do we move forward? And I think the biggest thing that I've learned so far along this journey is that it really does take a village. Leah noticed the shirt I'm wearing. I got this shirt when I visited Parkland. Lori Aldehuff, who is the mother of Alyssa, and you may recognize that name because we now have Alyssa's Law in the state, which requires all schools to have the panic alert buttons. This is a shirt that she makes, and it just says, keep our schools safe. And I think that is just the theme. And I've learned that even talking with legislators, board members, education staff, there are varying opinions on how we keep our students safe, but the one thing that we always come back to is that we all want to make sure that our schools are safe and that our kids are safe. And I think that's the thing that brings us back around the campfire over and over again. And just want to thank all of you for your openness and willingness. I was so excited when that 100% came in. Not because it's, you know, there's the paperwork, and I know there's so much paperwork in education, and you all know as well. But I think this goes beyond, and this really was an opportunity to walk through buildings and to identify what is safe in our building, what is not, what do we need to talk about, what are our philosophies on safety. So I think it opened those doors, and the fact that every single school in our state was open and willing to take on that big lift is just really commendable. So just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to recognize us and also just want to recognize you and again, our LEAs across the state who really did the heavy lift. And also want to recognize too our partners in law enforcement, our county security chief, our state security chief as well. It's a mindset shift for us and it's also for them as well. They're entering into the realm of education of, stickers on charts and, warm and fuzzies and greetings at the door, which is a foreign world for some of our law enforcement friends. And I just want to thank all of them as well. And then also our mental health folks. So on the School Safety Center, we have liaisons from Safe UT, from the Department of Public Safety, and then also the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health. And again, just want to really further illustrate that it really is a group effort, bringing collective minds together to talk about the issues and then, helping to inform the policy on that. So thank you. I'm very proud. I'm proud of everything that we're doing and just really excited that we're all coming around to keep our kids safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Levi, I don't know you. When you walked in, I'm like, oh, scramble, right? Going, wait, this is a face I'm not familiar with, which we look forward to working with you in the future. I know I've been on the Safety Collaborative till the last year and a half as it switched over to Safety Commission Task Force, Safety Task Force. So over the years that I've been on that, I know I've been able to form relationships with a variety of people and reached out for resources, sometimes with policies we're doing, sometimes with bills. Someone will reach out to me and I'll be like, I know the person to go to because there's been that relationship there. So I just thank you for all your work. I don't know, do committee members? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you all for your hard work and apologies for being late. This is my second term on standards, but clearly I haven't changed much. I have heard about the undertaking from the LEAs on getting that 100%. And because board member Hart complained to me about it a lot when she was going through the process as chair Hart, or as director Hart when she's at her school. But I know that was a huge lift. And I think that it's a really great step. And you have all heard a lot of feedback. I have a lot of thoughts about school safety and a lot about how we analyze the research and make the right decisions, and that we're, as a state, being flexible to the needs of different types of LEAs and the things that are fiscally responsible and the things that show that keep our students safe. And I know that it is a whole new world out there. So I just want to say from the USBE perspective, I've just been really proud and grateful for you guys and your work. And even though I have a lot of feedback, it's not generally towards the work that you're doing, but and then also that I hope as we go through this new era, you called it industrial revolution. I think that was a really good way of saying it. It's that it really is this balance of how we, determine what's best to keeping because I think regardless of political party or who you are, you want our schools safe. We want our schools safe. But balancing this, how do we help, try to identify and find issues within the student body or behaviors, but also the actual physical pieces of keeping our schools safe. So I look forward to all the work that you guys are going to do in the future, but I just want to say I'm grateful for you and thanks for all your hard work. And thank you to the LEAs and that getting to that 100% is really, really cool. Thanks.
Okay, I don't know how this works, meaning I don't have one for everyone. So we will get one for everyone. I don't know if everyone gets a trophy kind of a thing. So Levi, I don't know how that works. And Chrissy, yeah. So, because I'm panicked going through here I know we did more names than we have here, but everyone can have a trophy here. So yeah, whatever we got to do there. So, and maybe it's an award for future work, right? So, which I know this is a big lift. So this isn't by all means, we obviously can give a pre-award we know what the lift is here. We've seen it. We have great workers that are engaged in the things that need to happen. So thank you. And I will hand those to Chantel. And then anyways, thank you for all your efforts. So. Not here. I will. All right. Like I said earlier, we get a fun meeting today because we get to talk about information items. We don't have any action items. We're just waiting for the legislative session to finish so that we can have 2 or 3 extra standards and assessment meetings, right, during the month. Which there are a number of bills that are associated with standards and assessments. So we look forward to actually having those pass or not pass and then engaging in that. All right, we are going to move on. We have a discussion item. The board actually last year commissioned a study. The Utah State University was the one that was awarded the contract. They have spent the last,
Did you just say the Utah State University? Because I'm on board for that.
I don't know, did I say that? I didn't think I did, but if I did, however that needs to come out, yeah. And we have one of our researchers here, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. Let me give a little bit more introduction. This is around the success sequence, and it's around, the question was asked, do we have this in some of our standards already? Meaning that sequence of success that, if followed, will lead to, it's focused more on a financial end of it, but I think it speaks to broader success as well. Where those are at in our standards, which standards maybe we could add some additional resources or standards to, or some other information. Anyways, and I will turn the time over to our researcher if he wants to talk about, introduce himself and talk about maybe what the outcomes were that they saw. And then if it's okay, we just want to have a general discussion. We've also got staff here that are familiar with the project as well. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Alan Hawkins. I'm manager of the Utah Marriage Commission, and along with Dr. Lacey Bichetto at Utah State University, we're excited to get the assignment to look and see how success sequence concepts are being taught within secondary education. This success sequence is a very straightforward concept that children will do best in life if their parents finish their education, get a job, then get married, and then have children. When children are in that circumstance, they have less than 5% chance of experiencing poverty, and other outcomes are also very good for children and for the adults. And although it's a very basic and simple concept, our analysis of curricula was that although a few of the pieces of that are taught here and there, the full sequence of of this success sequence concept is not taught formally within the curricula. And that wasn't a terrible surprise, but I think it's important that we kind of recognize that. And in our report, to conclude it, we laid out some potential scenarios for how this could be done. Maybe just a real quick backstory is that it was, I think, the 2024 legislative session passed a joint resolution, I can't remember its number, but asking the State Board of Education to explore what schools were doing in terms of communicating the success sequence and what could be done. And so that was the research then that we took on. But I think our recommendation was that that there are several ways that we could go to more effectively communicate this success sequence to the students. And I think we laid out several scenarios in which it could be taught within health classes, within financial literacy classes, and within the human development So is that strand? I can't remember the terms that you use now, but um, and we just wanted to present those to the board as they think about what's the best way to respond to this legislative inquiry. I did notice, I guess part of the discussion might be on this, but I did notice that teaching the success sequence was added to, I think it was House Bill 281 in this session. Is that correct? Anyway, it looks like there's been some preliminary um, uh, talk and effort made, but I'll um, I'll I'll be quiet now and listen to your discussion and happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Great, thank you so much. And I think that we, even yesterday, to our financial literacy rule that we have around financial literacy, we asked that that be included when the task force reviews. We have a task force that reviews financial literacy standards and curricula and resources. And so we had it added there too as well. So I look forward to seeing where else it can be added. I just maybe committee members, I'm just going to ask if you have any questions or maybe about the research even. And we had Vice Chair Leanne Wood join us and Sarah Rill. Sarah's been here for just a few minutes, Board Member Rill, but thank you. We have, did we end up with Emily online yet?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm here.
so
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And then Board Member Green as well. So we'll just go ahead and take, if there's some questions about the research or findings, or if you wanted to add something to it, we'll let board members maybe communicate for just a few minutes, and then we'll see if staff has some additional insights. So go ahead, Board Member Rill.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I do have a question. So I've dug through the report a bunch, and I've had a lot of discussions about the success sequence with other board members and trying to understand, better the impact that it can have, because obviously I'm a big fan of getting families out of poverty and setting up people for success. I do have a question if in any of your research, did you find that there was an importance of family planning or I'm thinking about how if students are better equipped to understand how detrimental it can be financially, obviously we talk about that if they get pregnant before they get married. Is there any emphasis or any research out there on the importance of teaching, of how we teach sex ed or health and family planning so that we can make sure that they are following that success sequence?
Of course, there's a huge body of research on the effectiveness of teaching sex education and its outcomes. To the best of my knowledge, one of the most effective ways of reducing premarital pregnancies and teen pregnancies has been to integrate the more biological aspects of reproduction with the social elements of relationships and sexuality. There's actually some pretty good research documenting how that combination is usually it can be more effective in terms of that key outcome, reducing premarital pregnancies. And I'm forgetting the term the board uses, but there is an approved curricula that's been approved by the board called Love Notes. That is its approach. I don't think it even refers to itself as a sexuality education curriculum, although it certainly is that. But it embeds sexuality, choices about sexuality and reproduction within the context of relationship health. And that program has shown itself to be quite effective in reducing premarital pregnancies and several other important outcomes. Now, that's an intensive curriculum, and I don't know that that can be incorporated in full into public education. If my memory serves me correctly, it's a 12 or 13-hour curriculum. Maybe it's even a little bit more than that. However, I know the developers of that curriculum, and they work with many different organizations to create alternative versions, shorter versions. They're very open to working and adapting the curriculum to meet the needs of the organizations and what they can do. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just, when I think about the success sequence, I think about how important that piece is that family planning piece. And it doesn't even need to be like, teen pregnancy. It's like, even if you're in college and you're not done with your degree, and how that can impact your life if you do have an unplanned pregnancy. And so it's that balance of the healthy relationships, which also means that you're learning and understanding how to be in a healthy relationship, but
Yes.
also planning your family in a way that makes sure that it stays in the sequence of, I want to graduate from college, I want to, get a job. I'm planning my future in a way that is more financially responsible, is more responsible to, or sets you up in a way to be successful, right? That's a success sequence. But part of that to me too is making sure that these new generations understand and are doing what they can to make sure that they can follow that sequence, is also being educated on healthy relationships and family planning. So that's sort of been my view on the success sequence. I think there are a lot of positives to it. I'm happy to be integrating it into our curriculum wherever we can. And I see a lot of these recommendations you have in the report, but I wanted to ask you about that one piece, because I want to make sure that we're not lacking in that piece as we integrate the success sequence, which is so hard to say. Maybe it's like me, but I always mess it up. So thank you.
Yeah, and at the
I
core
guess,
of that
yeah.
curriculum is the simple concept of intentionality, that you decide about your life rather than slide through those key important transitions.
And I think there's some, I'm thinking, I was thinking Isabella Sahil, but I could be wrong, but there's a lot of research about sliding into marriage, like you just said, and sliding into, instead of being very intentional. But I do think that the key takeaway there is the marriage before children, right? And that the framing that within, that's not normally something a teenager is necessarily, a 15, 16-year-old. They're thinking future on that, not today. And so that's the discussion with within a marital relationship kind of a thing. Did you also had a
Yeah,
comment
I just
then?
had a question, and I hope everybody will bear with me since I'm brand new and just diving in to this. But I just wondered, with not just maybe marriage, but is there any research that you've looked at to actually promoting abstinence before marriage too? Because I feel like we watch a lot of these young girls and boys who are promiscuous early and having sex, and that also has such a dramatic effect on their emotional well-being, their mental health. So it's not just the family planning that I worry about, but also giving children or students evidence and research that shows that there maybe is a benefit to postponing these things till you're older and more equipped to handle it. I just wonder if you've looked at that at all.
There certainly is a good deal of research about teaching of abstinence, and it's a pretty heated debate about whether it works or not. I mean, I think the fairest assessment of that whole body of research that I have read is that neither abstinence nor some of the other kinds of approaches are incredibly effective. But the approach that does seem to work the best, as I mentioned earlier, is weaving together those biological and sex education elements with the relational and the social kinds of things, placing that whole issue around pregnancy within that broader context seems to gather, seems to marshal the cognitive skills that we really want our youth to have. The one thing I would say, however, is that the success sequence concept itself steers clear of I'm not sure what the right word, so let me just kind of say them, bluntly, but stays clear of the question of whether or not people are choosing to have sex before marriage. And the reality is that nearly 90% do have premarital sex. What it stresses is that there's an order of particular important life transitions. And wherever sexual debut and sexual activity comes in there, is an important issue and is worthy of being addressed in other ways. But it wants to emphasize that for long-term success for you and for your children, getting that education and getting a job, being settled economically might be saying a little too much, but at least getting going in the economic system, and then then marrying and then having children. It doesn't make a value statement about where sexuality begins in that process.
So, can you tell us, I guess we're asking you as if you were the main researcher of the success sequence, right? Which thank you for your responses. Specifically, this was looking at curriculum. I know you mentioned Love Notes, which I don't think it's actually, while it's listed in our resources, I don't think it had a recommendation because there were some provisions within it that did not align with code. So
Okay.
I just want to make sure that's out there. But I
And
do
again,
think
they are willing to work
Yeah.
with organizations to adapt their curricula.
Okay. Which leads me to a little bit of, I mean, just for this body itself, that within the code itself allows the state board, which I don't think we've done before, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but actually recommended different types of curriculum, specifically that the board can do that and put it on our list. Districts obviously can choose what they want to choose, but I think it kind of begs the question, in moving in this direction, are there recommendations that our body could make in the area of, maybe for some of these classes, or even resources? That was something that may come up.
And maybe that's a question that I have for staff, that if you don't have the answer to, that's totally okay, because I'm putting you on the spot. But based on some of these recommendations and knowing some of the standards that we've already reviewed over the last 2 years, is there like a priority or a list or a way that we want to look at finding ways to integrate the success sequence into these standards? And do we have do we need to make a plan for that, or?
I think it's discussion today, so we could ask if there's, we could ask if there's any thoughts on maybe the implementation.
Because it looks like it covers,
So-
obviously health, but also CTE, college and career, which we just went through. And then we talked about finance yesterday, which feels like that part was a great integration. But I didn't know if we wanted to make a plan for that to.
I know
I
our
don't know, Steph,
report,
do you?
excuse me, I should say, our report looked at those various ways, and there are strengths and weaknesses perhaps of including that success sequence curriculum in those different areas.
Okay, we have a couple staff members and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And if they have any thoughts they want to share with us, we'll take those into consideration. So thank you. Go ahead, Jody.
Hi, I'm Jody Parker. I'm the health education specialist here at USBE. So member Real, your names are not matching. So you are right now, member Wood. Member Wood is member Green, just, sorry. We did talk about this when we initially met with Dr. Hawkins and the research team. We all met and discussed some of the questions on the report. And member Real, this was actually one of my questions for the researchers. And it definitely seems that there are pieces throughout. And if a student were to take all of the courses, and if we had a systematic approach for recommendations to schools to incorporate, they would have repetition through I need CTE help on this. The 7th grade class, CTE Explorer.
It's the facts.
Okay, thank you. College career awareness. And then they would have health education also in middle school. And then they would take health again in high school and financial literacy. Through the pieces, if USBE were to be systematic in this, they would get each piece throughout some of those courses, and it would be the responsibility of us to provide those resources to the educators, then to make sure they're calling it out as an element of success sequence. So that's how it could work with our current standards right now without making any changes.
Okay.
Do you think that? I'm interested in what you think, Chair, about integrating it and the different, if you feel like there's a necessity or.
I think
In that way?
it would be beneficial.
Okay.
So yeah, I do. Other committee members, any thoughts on that?
Chair Earl?
Yeah.
I know that Professor Hawkins pointed out that House Bill 281 would actually address this if it does go through the House. It does require the state board to create it as part of their health curriculum.
Yes, it would, which begs a couple of questions, right? One of those that I've been thinking about, maybe this addresses some of that, is how do we do that when we have standards already created, right? And I guess it would be resources associated with current standards. Yeah, I got to ask Michelle about this. So Michelle, in one of our codes, like I said, as I've been thinking about this, so I went back and read the standards code. So this is 53E4203. At the bottom of that, section 11 or piece 11, it says nothing in this section prohibits the state board from amending or adding individual course standards for Utah Public Schools as the need arises in this and the state board's ongoing responsibilities. So I'm just looking at what individual course standards, what that might be interpreted to mean. If it allows any kind of engagement when we have a set already done and we have a law passed or something, it's a question in my mind. What does that mean? I don't know that it means, I don't think it's saying we have to go through the whole process again. But I guess the question is are we allowed to, fingers crossed, right? That takes 2 years, allowed to create a process for implementing updates or not? I don't know, because I don't think we have that process that I know of.
I don't think your policy outlines how that's done.
Right.
So for me, I would have to rely on what your policy says in terms of standards revisions and your standards revisions process.
So that's what I'm saying though, we may need, if we were to do something like that, we'd have to revise our process.
You would need to.
I guess the question is, does the law allow us to revise the process?
There is some leeway in it.
Okay.
As long as your process still follows what the code provisions say that you need to do. There is some leeway in your timing on doing that.
So we would need to establish a process if we chose to do that, or put it as in part of our process for the core standards.
And you could add it as an additional process that you would call it a minor, let's say you'd call it minor revisions.
Yeah.
A process for minor revisions. You could come up with that in your policy, but I think you need to do that in your policy first.
Or wait to see if the bill goes through, then we'd have to.
And can I
Right, get
ask a
started.
question? How
Yeah.
would we do that with the least impact to our LEAs? Because I think a lot of them go through the same cycle. They know we're going through here, so they start looking at curriculum as we go through. So how do we do that in a best way that, I mean, I can see resources where we say, here's some additional things that you need to talk about, and then we're going to incorporate this. But this overhaul of a standard, all of a sudden, there's just a lot of processes that kick off other things throughout the state.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, if you have some thoughts on that.
With this bill, I have had a lot of discussions with LEAs, particularly when creating the fiscal note. And I do know there is a substantial financial impact if they were to have to redo full adoption of curriculum. Specifically, this section, which is sex education instruction, has very specific adoption rules, and which does cause it to be a little more costly. For example, Davis School District, which you represent, majority of, said it's $10 million if they had to readopt everything. And that's one, right? I can list all
But
of them for you.
And let me just clarify. But a readoption would be going through all of the standards, making sure
Correct.
they align. And an amended standard wouldn't require a readoption. It may require an additional lesson,
Yes.
right? Or a modification to a slide deck, right? Okay.
Correct. If we are only adding a piece and into specifically this section, they would only have to go through the process, which they have to do annually anyway.
Yeah.
So that is an annual process. The law already states it's an annual process that they have to review every single year with their committee that includes parents. And then the report's taken to their board for adoption and approval. That's an annual process anyway. In this case, they would select the material, the instructional material for the addition. Unless it is a complete total replacement, then yeah, it really isn't a financial burden for them to add something all again because they already have to annually.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Nathan Ott.
Yeah, Nathan Ott, STEM coordinator, Utah State Board of Education, and an alumni of The Ohio State University. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
With regards to implementation of like the 13-step standards process that staff have gone through over the past few years, we've had a lot of conversations surrounding this question about like, what if there's only little changes? Like, can we make changes? I can tell you, like, as it's related to the way that we've engaged in that process thus far, we don't have a structure like that we have found collectively that felt within the bounds of what the process that the board has approved looks like. So it would be helpful for us to have some direction as it relates to the scope of whatever decision the board decides on.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Interim Deputy Superintendent Voorhees. So one of the things that we have talked about specifically relating to Nate's comment is we will be recruiting very soon for a new director of teaching and learning. And that idea and process is something that we could and seems to make very good sense to assign to our new director as kind of a priority task.
Okay. And we may get it done before then, unless you're hiring in the next couple of weeks, or begin the process or our thought process related to that in some ways. And then I think Board Member Wood, do you have our chair? Okay. It seems like there should be some process. And the only reason why I'm saying that is we shouldn't have to wait, right? And especially if we have and I'm just thinking of AI in general, right? We're like, put our framework out there. We know we're going to change it in 3 months, not 2 years, right? This isn't a set framework forever. We know that there's going to be a need. And I think that's that same kind of thing, is that to wait 10 years or 7 years until we do the next process and then we'll overhaul everything. It just seems to me that it's lack of response. We're not being really responsive, not only to legislative requests, but we're not being responsive probably even to research or evidence-based practices that we learn more and more on. So it seems like we would want to start thinking about that. But go ahead, Vice Chair Wood.
Just another question on process. How often does the survey go out where we ask for feedback on standards?
Annually.
And so what happens when we come back and a teacher says, that there's a concern, or a parent comes back and says, there's a concern with this standard? What do we do with that information? If we're not in our 5-year, 7-year, do we just throw it in a bucket until it comes around?
Go through the okay. So there is a rubric that staff of all standards, right? This isn't just health education, but I'll speak to how I've done physical education in the past, and now I am only health education. So part of that weight of the number of determination if the standards need to be revised or not is the survey that goes out every year, and that number gets inputted onto the rubric. The other part is staff determining if this. It's also how old the standards are. That's one of the numbers, right? So if they are 0 to 3 years old, if they're 4 to 5 years old, if they're more than 5 years old, and then I think anyway. So there's a scale of how old they are, and then also is there new research that has come up in the field? Is there are the standards? Do they have the right alignment? Are there too many standards, right? So there's there's a series of questions, and each section has a different weight. The survey has a pretty significant weight on that. Yeah, has a the survey to the public and educators and parents, right? They all get to weigh in on that. That has a pretty significant weight, and then that total weight determines whether it is time to revise or not, even outside of that 7-year cycle.
So this is the table we get in our backup where it's like, this one was triggered because of all of the different weightings. And so once it's triggered, you move forward, whether it's in our...
it comes to you for the board to determine if it should be revised or not. Okay. But that is the recommendation of staff of it made the number, right? The score. Yeah. The score is high enough that the recommendation would be for you all, the board, to look at and determine if it should go through the process or not. Okay. For example, there was a set of standards that, because of the age of the standards, it was up for, and y'all decided not to go through the revision process because the determination by the board was that it wasn't a need.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And if you want to, go ahead.
So I have a question back to success when you're ready to go there. I know we're kind of in the standards process right now, but I have a specific question.
Okay. On October, if you go back to October 6th, it's on the Standards Assessment Committee. It's item number 6, actually shows you, if I'm just saying it public, or if you wanted to do that yourself, it's listed there so you could kind of refresh on what that is or familiarize yourself if you're new to the board. So anyways, okay, so go ahead. We'll go ahead and ask your question then.
Yeah, so this is just related to the term success sequence, because we had this conversation yesterday in the full board where, and if you look at, there's an article, it's called the Synthesis of the Literature on Success Sequence, and they talk about the fact that it says that since 2009, researchers and commenters have proposed several changes to the definition, ranging from refinements to the specific milestones to expanding the number of milestones. So do we have any concern with this relying on just this term, or would we be better off in terms of talking about the actual 3-prong framework that we want? I just, for future reference.
I'll just, for yesterday's, we actually put in the 3-prong. So when we, just like we do when we have a definition, we said this is what we're viewing it as. So if we wanted to change that, the board could change it, right, and add in something. But currently, that's how it would stand, at least in yesterday's financial literacy. So we would want, we would want to do the same thing, so that if someone, and which we always see when you have some kind of a term, right? We've seen it with a lot of terms where we're thinking this, and other people take it and use it to mean something that they want it to mean, or they take a branch of the research and go off in a different direction and, use that. So we have seen that. So I think Leanne makes a good point that whatever we do, we would want to articulate how we're using it and in what way we're viewing it. So would you say that would be accurate? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to your question, Board Member Wood, I want to make sure that as you think about ways to kind of determine or build structures for this kind of middle ground as it relates to standards revision, that rubric was built with the explicit intent of full like process standard revision. So all the weights that are built into that tool are kind of incumbent upon the assumption that this is going to lead to a lot of effort, work, and money and resources that go into that process. There is a lot of specific feedback that generally the Director of Teaching and Learning goes through and kind of parses into the different subject areas, and then each of the content specialists have the opportunity to look at what all of that feedback looks like. So I think there's an opportunity to leverage some of the resources that live within it, but that like outputted number that you all get when making determinations is specific to that kind of like binary step of do we revise, do we not revise?
Yeah, and it's the full impact, right? It's not the pieces if we had to modify something. And that's the question we'll have come before us is how to, if we have, pieces, how do we do that in a way that, and obviously when it reaches a certain critical mass, it would initiate the full revision. But if we don't need to do the full revision and we're looking at pieces, then that's what would need to go there. But I would think there would need to be, I'm just thinking out loud, but there would need to be some kind of a public comment component, right? It isn't similar to when we do individual elective, that's not the term we use, elective standards.
Supplement.
Non-core, supplemental. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. The supplemental standards require a 30-day process, right? So I think to me that there would need to build in some kind of accountability to constituency and to the field that would, if we chose to go down this path and that kind of a thing. So Leanne, our board Vice Chair Wood.
Often you have some of those guides to the standards. Do you ever take some of that feedback where it's like something that, this would be it's not really changing the standards, but it would be an addition? Do those standard guides get updated periodically where we add in things that totally align with the standards? We're not changing the standards, but it's, maybe a best practice that's come in place. Does that ever happen?
Yes, core guides are regularly updated. Yeah, they're the core guides, and there is a board approved process for core guide creation. Yes, and I suppose revision. But there's a process that outlines how core guides are developed. That was the word I was looking for. And so staff would follow that. But yes, as there is new information, new research, our standards are very intentionally written to be broad so that very specific changes can happen. I'll give you a very simple example, substance abuse prevention. We don't say vaping. That could change. We say nicotine product and substance and then alcohol, right? So we have 3 just big buckets. And that way, whatever the very specific thing is, that can be given in the form of resources or into the core guide if it's a very big item that we would definitely want them to say, right? We would want them right now to discuss vaping products. In 10 years, I don't know. But the standard could live as it is and change the specific thing. And the core guide can take care of that very specific piece where the standard is written to be a little more open and broad, more of a, like all of these things can be under that. And the standard's okay. We don't have to go through a 2-year process and spend the amount of human resource and financial resource for that. And the core guides help the classroom teachers with the very specific item.
And I think that's a great example. I know last summer I went to one of the safety meetings that they had, and there was a gentleman there that presented on the latest trends in this very area and talking about how mushrooms are being used and how, right? And we don't, to have spelled that out a few years ago, we wouldn't have had the same. And his thought process is that we won't be able to keep up. Like by the time we hit August, it may actually already be a new trend, right? I just remember like powdered alcohol. I mean, you got all these things going on that, interweave with something. And therefore, that's just, it's the next trend, right? Bath salt. I mean, you could go on and on. But I do think when we get into some specifics and maybe when the health bill comes out, we can look and say, where do we need to do this? And what does that need to look like in a responsible way? Right. So I have a question with our relationship with UEN and resources. And the reason why is because that's a good place for us to put resources that are usable with the success sequence and with other standards, right? What is our relationship there? Can you tell me what the process is that we use? And it maybe tell everybody, maybe even if someone wants to, or I can, what UEN is, so that the public that's maybe not familiar and is listening would know what that means.
Yeah. So the UEN, what it is exactly, I'm a little nervous about.
Okay. I'll fill in the blank when you're done.
Yeah. So
Okay.
UEN or UETN,
Yeah.
the Utah Education Telehealth Network, I think is what that stands for, right? Thank you for the nods. They are a partner organization that we collaborate with within the kind of state government realm of Utah, that's focused on empowering teachers to be effective purveyors of technology, or maybe purveyors of their content through technology. So they provide professional learning as it relates to how to effectively use different technology tools. And then they also provide a whole other suite of services as it relates to kind of consortium pricing for particular like products that stakeholders have established a kind of a broad need across the state, and which allows rural districts to be able to participate in pricing that's at the kind of similar level to the bigger urban districts. And then they also house what's called the eMedia Hub. And so the eMedia Hub is basically a hub that has all of the different content areas represented. And within those content areas, educators from across the state can look for targeted resources to meet whatever needs they have. And each of those hubs has a kind of section of it which is associated with USBE resources, and so that there's kind of parity between, if someone goes to our website and goes to the UEN website, they're finding like similarly updated materials and aligned materials. So I think UEN's eMedia Hub's actually, when we have some technology within USBE, and it is one of, if not the most visited sites by educators across the state looking for resources. And I think it would be a great place to be able to put resources that are aligned to, like there's already a number of resources there that are aligned to standards. Teachers can find those standards aligned resources now, including the core guides as we were talking about, and additional resources could live there as well.
Okay, I just have to say one thing. Andrea, can you get him a certificate for doing that today? That was pretty good. That was a pretty good summary. So anyways, go ahead.
I was just going to add specifically to health education, there is an eMedia Hub, and teachers can also add lessons to that. There's kind of an outline that they would use to make sure that, right, you're using the current standards, for example, that it's a high quality instructional material. So there is kind of a template that they would use in order to submit a lesson. In addition, after the standard health education core standards were approved and adopted in 2019 by this board, we went through literally thousands of lessons that were previously on UEN, and we asked to have them removed. And this is an ongoing process. So just because something is submitted, we might not know even who, it might not even be a Utah person, right? UEN's, it's a public site. You can create your login. And if something is there, I do have the ability to ask UEN to remove that source. And I have done so, even in the recent, right, like within the last year. I have asked for things to be removed because they are not well aligned with either our standards, our rigor, or our laws. And so that is one piece I want to be really certain to add to what is available on UEN. when I am informed that there's something that shouldn't be there, they are very, very responsive in removing that.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. They're responsive to that. So and I guess we're back to the success sequence, right? That's where we kind of started, and maybe we can kind of wrap up last thoughts here. But it sounds to me like there's a lot of possibilities of entering into the standards, which may be a modification, but it doesn't have to be, right? It could be core guides. It could be, I don't know if Talia has some other thoughts too, but it could be resources on locations like UEN, right? Or even when we do professional development, providing resources in that area, right? Or there's a variety of places where there's an entry point in the actual standards because some of those are broader. So I don't know if Talia has any, do you have any thoughts on that?
I almost said good afternoon. It really doesn't feel like afternoon. I don't know. Good morning. And Talia Longhurst, Director of Career and Technical Education. I just need to put something out there for the minutes first before the University of Utah is how it should be referred to.
Okay.
Just for the record.
Thank you.
Although I do have education from Utah State as well, but got to get that out there. For the CTE elective courses that are specified in the USU study, we've been going back and forth about how that can be done, particularly with the exception of financial literacy. The other courses are not up for revisions for about 2 more years. What we can do in the meantime, rather than take those off cycle, because that involves a full sequence of courses, it would be a significant lift for us. What we can do in the meantime, until those come up, is just work with our teachers, do some professional learning, get that information out there. It's easily incorporated into the standards as they exist today, not a big lift to just incorporate those with language that is today, but not language that is specific to success sequence. That is hard to say. So we can do that immediately, and we will start some professional learning for teachers, ask them to incorporate it in context. I really did like the way that the USU study talked about teaching it in context of these different courses. And so rather than continuing to just say, here's the 3 steps that you need to memorize, we want to teach it in, okay, we know those 3 steps. Now, how do we actually accomplish it? What can you do to plan so that this happens in your life? And so that is our suggestion for incorporating into the CTE standards.
Okay, thank you. And I think there's just, sometimes there's awareness thing just in general, right? When we have new research come out or something that it's like, in general, just an awareness that something's there. So this is one of those. Okay, all right. Oh, go ahead. We'll go ahead, Vice Chair Brent.
I just had a question. I wonder, do you ever do anything where teachers get rewarded, like competitions for submitting great lesson plans? I know Utah has so many wonderful master teachers. Like, is there anything?
I can speak to at least a few programs that we offer. Maybe programs isn't the right word. I guess like opportunities in which we offer application processes for teachers across the state to participate in some cases, professional learning with the intent to build like particular resources. In some of those cases, right now we have at least 3 projects going on across teaching and learning that the kind of output of those the experiences the teachers will have, including professional learning, are high quality lesson plans that they build. And so they're paid for their time as a part of that. To my knowledge, there's no kind of award process for really high quality lesson plans. But there is that's kind of a side door entry into the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The same thing happens with the special ed team, like almost identical to how Nate described it.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Real, did you have a question or comment?
I was just going to ask if I in my tiny search that I did, I saw that Mississippi is another state that has passed a law integrating the success sequence, but do you know of any others?
I do not, and your own research may have exceeded mine there. Mine is more just word of mouth. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if some other states have done so, but I'm not aware. And in my discussions with the author of the Love Notes curriculum, she didn't mention any, and I thought that she would be quite aware. So, yeah, I could actually make a more formal inquiry about that.
No, you're fine. I was just curious. And because I think it would be good. I mean, if we're the one leading the way in this, that's fine. And I think that's great, but it's also good to learn from. That's why I love that states get to make their own laws. We can learn from each other. And the last thing I wanted to say in regards to the success sequence is that I remember Leah brought up this yesterday. In full disclosure, I was not a fan of the success sequence initially. I didn't like the structure of forcing people into marriage. I didn't like, as someone that personally has never taken, I technically am, as Member Wood has told me, I did follow the success sequence. But I have slowly gotten on board with this idea and helping integrate this into our schools. But one thing that Member Lear brought up yesterday that I thought was kind of empowering is that it doesn't, gender doesn't come into play. So it's talking about how you can be successful, whether it's not as patriarchal as I thought it was, I guess is the best way to say that. And so I think it encourages all of our students to get a great education, which I think is also really important. And we know that there are huge economic advantages by just getting a tech certificate or a higher education degree. As someone that works in higher ed, I support that immensely. But I think that it's also good to not be specific about how that family looks. And that's important to me.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
If I could just add one comment, because I try to plug this wherever and whenever I get a chance. For us here in Utah, especially in CTE and school counseling, we like to say, it's our little tagline, college means 1, 2, 4, or more. So it's not just about a traditional 4-year degree, although that is great and wonderful, but it's not necessarily for everyone. So 1, 2, 4, or more. Put that in the back of your heads and pull that out when you need it.
Thank you. Okay, I think we don't have any action on this, but I think if staff are start thinking that direction, you've gotten a little bit of information here, and we may look at putting together some kind of a process, especially as we have a number of bills moving currently, to make sure that we can actually, have a way to implement what comes out of the legislative session, or to at least consider that. So, okay, we are going to move on to our next piece here on our agenda. Thank you so much. Thanks for the input.
You. And if the board
sorry.
would,
Yes, on our special guest before you leave,
well, I
Alan
was just gonna
Hawkins,
say,
Dr. Hawkins.
If there's any value in the Utah Marriage Commission just doing a training session for teachers to give them a little more depth in this,
You guys hear that?
we would be very happy to do that.
Okay, so he just mentioned the Utah Marriage Commission would be a resource as far as to help educate for our educators. So
we'd be happy.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. You're welcome to stay with us if you want, but you're
I actually
welcome
have
to.
an 11 o'clock appointment I need to get ready for.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is our AI education update. And I think, remind me, we have it in backup. Public can read it. We can read it. I don't know if anybody had any comments on it. Our AI person is not here today, but we just felt like still including where we're at on things was an important piece. Do you have a comment on that?
Yes. So we also wanted to know, Chair, for the past almost year, I think we've been having a monthly AI update in standards and assessment because, as you mentioned, Chair, things have been moving very quickly. So we wanted to follow up with the committee. Do you want to continue to have a monthly update? Do you want to move it to every other? Do you want to move it to quarterly? Do you want to move it as there is something that you might be interested in? We're happy to do any of those, but
it's changing so rapidly.
Well, I would
That's part of
say,
the hard. Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, it's changing so rapidly. Like even in the last 2 weeks, there's been a new technology that's been released that is changing a lot of things. And so I think maybe we could reassess how often we have an update after the bill we see the bill
That's what I
passes
was-
or not.
Yeah, I would think April would be an appropriate next update. Does that feel about right? Then we can get legislative, not right after the session, right? If we could go in April, then I think that would be the next appropriate. And then we can ask the question then again, when would be a good time to have that update again? Yes, ask the question, and then we can do either quarterly or as the board, or, board members feel, the committee feels. Our next item then is our bi-monthly mathematics standards update. And we will turn it over. We have a few people here. So. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Go ahead.
It's Nathan Ock, STEM coordinator and PCBL specialist for the Utah State Board of Education. I have with me 3 of our experts and specialists from our math team. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Melissa Garber, elementary math specialist.
And Mike Spencer, the secondary math specialist.
And then we have one more person in 2 dimensions as opposed to the 4 that we all are experiencing, and that's Molly Basham online.
Hey, I'm Molly Basham, early learning mathematics specialist.
Thank you.
So you may have noticed we're laughing about this as we were putting board backup in this month. We, based on the board approved process for standards revision, we come before you each 2 months to give you some updates, and for about 3 of those updates in a row, the backup item looked very similar. There was not very many words changed, and so this month is not too dissimilar from those other ones, with one notable exception. So we had the opportunity since we last met in December to meet in person with our lead writing teams on multiple occasions. 2 of those were full day meetings, and I think we had 2 kind of shorter meetings to kind of be able to dig into individual topics. We also had the opportunity to get some feedback on our kind of rolling draft from some other math leaders within Utah's kind of state leadership space. And so the one notable difference that shows up on backup this month as opposed to previous ones is we have a kind of target date for sending a first draft of our math standards to the board. We're shooting for by the end of March to have those revisions in front of you, along with a kind of mechanism for you to be able to offer us feedback. And so just as a reminder, step 7 in the standards revision process is one in which we send the kind of draft standards to the board, and the board has 30 days to offer us standards. We, as USB staff, take those standards to the writing committee and then engage them in taking the feedback that we've gotten from the board, making some more revisions, and then bringing that back for confirmation to move to the state kind of stakeholders feedback step in the process. So we see the end of the road with regards to the drafts, and we're excited to have the opportunity to share it with you in somewhere in the next 2 months timeframe.
Okay, thank you. Any questions anybody has? Okay, I'm anxious. So I'm just saying that I'm anxious. I'm excited but anxious. Like I said, I'm just doing my own research, and then next week we'll be visiting Washington School District and kind of seeing what the successes they're having down there. So,
do you all have any math packets that we can give Member Earl to do while she anxiously awaits the writing
I would
committee's
love
work?
that.
Just give her
Please
some
hand
busy
them
work,
over.
some math busy work, please.
The UENE Media Hub has some great resources that you could check out if you want some math work to do.
And maybe we can hold off on sending the packets out until the end of the session, because I know there's a definition of packet in one particular build-this session. So I'd love to have that definition before we send it.
Yeah.
If you give her a math packet, I want a frog to dissect. So no math packets for me.
Yeah, you will have me doing that instead of the board meeting stuff, huh? Yeah, and I've said this before, and that also came with the motion that came out last year from the board. And I think even Senator Milner's kind of hitting on it a little bit too with the bill that she has, which falls within our provisions, is that we have limited time with kids, right? We have limited time for math instruction. And how do we get the greatest impact starting at each grade, to get the most effective outcomes, especially when students get to, their to the algebra area, right, to that higher level math. And I know people think maybe this is my own bias here playing in. You can tell me that there are math people and there are not math people. And I actually feel like that's an excuse. You don't have to love math to be able to do math well. And that's the same with reading. You don't have to love reading to be able to read well. The same with writing. You don't have to love writing to be able to write well, but you need to have the skills to be able to do those things. And whatever's going to give us the greatest impact, the most efficiency, and create that love of learning that takes place. That's what I'm looking for in standards. So go ahead.
Yes, and I would not be traditionally a math person. I'm a history person. But I just wonder if we're looking, and based on history, are we looking at continuing on in the same way? Math scores are declining, right? And we've just had the NEEP results come out. And is there any talk about going back away from the Common Core to more traditional math that I grew up with? And I mean, I'm struggling with 6th grade, 7th grade, 4th grade math. The way that it's taught now I just feel like it's kind of muddy and confusing. And I would love to see us go back to traditional methods. So I'm just wondering if you were looking at what states are doing it the best. I believe I saw was it Massachusetts and others that are having the higher scores? Are we comparing those?
Yeah, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Superintendent Dixon shared some interesting results from the NAEP testing that just came out recently, and Utah saw some significant gains across the 4th grade math results, and in 8th grade, was it an increase as well, or was it
It was steady.
Yeah, it was steady, and we've been significantly above the national average for a while. We shared some research across the last 8 or so months in some of our board updates that through the pandemic, Utah arguably fared better than any other state in the nation as it relates to math results. So while, and I think board member Earl put it really well in a conversation in the spring, it's yeah, we didn't go down, but we're not doing well enough. There's still opportunity to continue to improve, despite the fact that educators have done a fantastic job at weathering a really tricky storm the last 4 years. So I think the writing team has done a really great job at taking the momentum that Utah has collectively in the achievement of its students and trying to imbue the draft that we'll bring to you in a couple of months with a lot of the same qualities that has brought us that success, while trying to respond to the feedback that both our review committee and board members offered us in the springtime. So when you see what shows up within, especially the elementary standards, there's not going to be substantial shifts because of the successes that we've seen. There are some changes. We've tried to make them kind of align to the former standards as well as possible. There are some larger shifts in the secondary space because the feedback that we'd had for some of those courses was more significant than what we'd gotten in the elementary space. So while you'll notice that the standards will look different than our old Utah core, again, based on the feedback that we've gotten, I think that the heart of the revised standards maintain what has allowed us to have the success that we've had over the past few years.
Okay. I know that Utah does well compared to other states in the nation, but I just look at how overall we're falling behind other countries as well, Asian countries and stuff. And so what is it that Japan's doing? What is it that other countries are doing? Do you all look at those things as well for our students? Because I would love to see Utah shine for the whole country and the world.
Yes.
And even, can I add to that?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Please.
Oh, well, and I've highlighted number, Brenton, where, you know, some students that had come from Malaysia and they're in the elementary grade, and this was, I don't know, 8 years ago. They were 2 grade levels ahead of our elementary students. So that child came and kind of just twiddled their thumbs. I mean, it's a legitimate question. And on an international stage, we really like, okay, great, we're great in the US, but if our trends are top of a declining trend, we should look at that. And I think we need to. If we're really going to keep up with the trends of, hey, people are getting math, I hope that we are considering that. And I hope we are going next level to address both the decline in that trend and to take the opportunity, the bull by the horns, and say, we are going to be competitive because it's manifesting that we are behind internationally.
Any comments, or you don't have to, but
Can I hop in online? I had my hand raised, but I'm not sure if you guys can see me in the room.
Oh, I cannot. Oh, it's Molly.
This
Yeah,
is
go
Molly
ahead.
Basham. Yeah, sorry. Molly Basham, Early Learning Mathematics Specialist. I would love to add that the writing committee did throughout the process, especially in the early phases before we really got to the point where the writers were making changes to the standards, did look at standards that have been passed in other states as well as standards in other countries to try to address exactly what you're talking about, making sure that our Utah core standards are following national or international trends that are helping students make the best possible progress in mathematics. And I'm going to contradict what Nate said just a little bit. Our elementary writing teams have made changes while the mathematics in the elementary grades is still the same. I would say that the standards, the writers have worked to make the standards as clear as possible, as well aligned as possible. They've really focused in the fluency space, in our operations and algebraic thinking standards and our numbers and base 10 standards, really trying to focus on making sure that those standards are clear and coherent so that students have the strongest possible foundation in their numeracy skills, their understanding of numbers, and their ability to accurately and fluently compute math facts so that, as you mentioned, Board Member Earl, when they get to those higher level math classes, they have those basic skills to help them be successful.
Yeah, and I want to just add on to that as well, because 3 years ago, when I'm still fresh on this campaign trail, I talked to chemistry teachers. I talked to advanced math teachers, and they are saying they can't show up to do their job because they can't, the kids aren't at the level that they need to be in order to do chemistry, to do advanced math. And, you know, the exodus of teachers leaving, part of that reason is because just in the last year, a phenomenal math teacher retired early because they're not doing their job because they can't teach. The word used was doing remedial math instead of honors math. And so, you know, I know that we're all aware of that. And I just want to keep that pressure on every single one of us, because if we are in the field and looking at trends, why are teachers leaving? It's not because there's levels of the pay, but if you really talk to people, it's issues like this. I'm high level math and I'm doing remedial. There's not a purpose for me to be here, and they exit. And that's part of the mass exodus that we've seen for the teacher shortage, you know, situation. So I am also anxious, and I'm very hopeful. I just hope that pressure stays there so that we are really saying, hey, if it is Common Core math, let's address that. And if it's not, let's fortify that and add to it. So anyway, those are just my thoughts.
Okay, do you also have?
Yeah,
any
thank
comments?
you. Yeah, just I was thinking on the campaign trail too. I did reach out to our university at Utah Tech and called their math department, and they said they've seen the numbers in enrolling in, I think it's Math 900, that's remedial, like fifth grade math, kind of fifth to eighth grade, going back to the basics, have doubled, and they've gone up so much over the last 5 years. So yeah, I would love to see us really dig in and look at the results, and if it is, like she said, Common Core, let's go back to things that work better and that'll get our students to excel. Again, I know you all care a lot. Obviously, you're in this position, and we just want to champion this on and have Utah lead out and be behind you on however we can to help this.
I told you, I think, right, that it's not going to be, oh, we're here, right? And we are one of the top ones in the state or in the nation. It's going to be, what did Utah do, right? And just showing math proficiency is 41%, right? And that's great. I'm glad we're there. How do we get it to 50%? How do we get it to 60%? So we've got those incremental improvements. And it sounds like we're headed in that direction. That's what it sounds like. One other thing, I do want it so that, this is just me, so that kids, after they take algebra, it's a choice to do applied math or to do, right? It's not that they can only do one type of math. It's that they get to choose, what do I want to do? And then it's not eliminating form, right? It's literally, this is the choice I made to go this far, not that I can't do it because I lost the concept. So anyways, okay, I don't know that we need to beat this anymore. So I look for anybody else going down next week. Joanne, you're gonna go, right? On to Washington County. Okay. Well, you have, is it just two of us? You got a couple more?
We've got board member Earl and board member Brinton for next
Okay.
week. And then on February 20th, we have several more board members that will be joining us for the Salt Lake City School District.
Perfect.
We visited Logan, and unfortunately it was a conflict with the legislative. We should have checked the actual legislative calendar, but saw some amazing
That's
things
the
in
one I
that
wanted
school.
to, well,
We'll set you up, because we made some great contacts with the people, and the teachers it's just been exciting to see how hard teachers are working and the great things that they're doing in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the visits.
Very
as well.
deliberateness. And I'm grateful
Yeah.
our state didn't close down when others did during COVID, because it allowed us to continue the consistency, right? That has prevented some of the decline we've seen in other states. So it's been a great blessing to have that. Okay, any closing thoughts? Oh, yeah. Okay, anything else on this before we move? Okay, yes. Oh, yeah.
One final piece connected to both Vice Chair Brinton's comments and Chair Earl's comments. With regards to the pathways, I think that is a unanimous desire across the Utah math and the Utah community, even to ensure that students are empowered to be able to make choices in their kind of math pathways that fit their interests and their career aspirations. And so the writing committee, and Mike in particular in facilitating this, has done a tremendous job, I think, at providing a more clear vision of what those choices look like in third year math as compared to what we have now. And further, I think that we have seen a lot of progress. Like, Utah is looked to already in this pathway space from across the country with a kind of sterling vision, because of how aligned our 1030, 1040, and 1050 courses have been to the kind of preparatory secondary curriculum that they're experiencing. So we're hoping to kind of amplify that opportunity as it relates to students choosing one of those three math pathways. And so, like, we have really great data showing how the number of students that are taking 1050 has gone up, but the proportion of students that are taking 1030 and 1040, while those students taking 1050 have gone up, those have taken up a bigger piece of the pie. So what that means is we're having more students that are taking concurrent enrollment mathematics when they're in high school to establish their QR or QL credits, and we're having more students that are making decisions, not just because like 1050 is where I'm supposed to go, but based on interest and career aspirations. So we have some momentum in this space as well that we're hopeful that the pathways that we will be sharing with you shortly provide a kind of extra level of opportunity with regards to. And then my final comment, just as it relates to the structure of the standards that we're building, in code, it says a standard is a knowledge, skill, and competency that define what students need to know. And so we're going to have really specific competencies that are associated with our standards within each grade level to respond to the feedback that I think you're expressing, Board Member Britton, that others have expressed throughout the process.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting, and we got we're a month out, right? So thank you. And then AAG Buse, you had a comment?
Yes, sometimes it takes me a minute to find answers for you in the law. When you ask
That's
me.
why I
You don't
told
have
at the
all of
beginning,
our
so-
code memorized?
I don't.
Oh my God.
But in terms of being able to make adjustments or amendments to standards without going through that whole big process that the law requires, there actually is a provision in the code that says nothing in this section prohibits the state board from amending or adding individual core standards for Utah Public Schools as the need arises in the state board's ongoing responsibilities. And
So
it
we
says
just need a
if you do that-
process,
Yes,
right?
it says
Okay.
if you do that and you're skipping the whole big process, that you do need to report it to education interim.
Yeah, okay.
So sorry that it takes me a minute to sometimes find answers for you.
No. That's
Do not
that's the
apologize.
question, right? That's what was on my mind as I see some things coming through, even with writing standards and stuff. If we, I know there's questions there, but is there a process, right? And we
Yes,
don't have the
it does
process,
let
but it
you.
looks like we're able to do it.
Yes, it does
Okay.
let you under the code. It does let us
Okay.
come up with a way to just amend or add one.
Yeah.
Would
And
you
I think
be
we would
okay
need to,
share that with us, please. That would be wonderful.
it's in, what's it, 53?
53E dash 4 dash 203.
And it's subsection 11, right?
Yes, it is subsection 11.
So we would just need to, and that's something for board members to be thinking about, that what that process is. So, and we kind of asked staff to start pondering that, and I can't remember, I was going to say something else, but I don't remember. Okay, I just guess I am looking for one motion. A motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. So we are adjourned. Thank you for everyone.